Okay, let me try and explain how I knew to use 150 on the width of my menu and how I knew to use 801 pixels for the width of the main content area. I have my trusty Mac calculator here. So the maximum width, our paper size, if you will, that we're designing for was 960, right? So we take 960, and what I'm going to do there is I'm going to subtract the width of the menu that I set up here. I used 150 just as kind of a roundish number. You could have used 200 or 175 or however wide you want that menu to be, right? So I'm going to take 960 and subtract 150 from it, right? That leaves us with 810 pixels of workable space, or workable width, I suppose you could say, inside our layout. But I also wanted a margin of 5 pixels between the menu and the main content area, right? So I'm going to take 810 and I'm going to knock 5 off of it. Of course, that's 805. And then where things get tricky, do you know about the CSS box model? If you know about the box model, then you know that properties like border and padding impact the width of an overall object, right? So here's the deal. I have borders around these two objects. I have a 1 pixel border going all the way around all 4 sides on my menu, and the same holds true for the content div as well. So in terms of my horizontal measurement, I have 1 pixel, 2, 3, and 4 over on the right-hand side. So I don't even need to type this into the calculator for you, but 805 less 4 pixels gives us 801. That's how I knew to use 801 pixels, right? So that's the deal there. But again, just like you saw in some of the previous exercises, I can take that maximum width, that 960 pixels, and I can carve it up however I want. I could have set up a 3-column layout here with you, or a 6-column layout, or a single-column layout, or whatever I want, right? So I can set that up however I want. I just have to remember the 960, and I have to remember my box model. Beyond that, it's carte blanche. You can do what you want. Okay, cool. I hope that works for you. All right, a couple of other things for you to think about as well. I'm looking at this main content area, and I'm sitting there going, you know, the text is sitting right up against the edge of that div there. It's touching the borders there, isn't it? I want to put some space there. Well, again, I know my CSS, and I know that I have to use padding in order to adjust or increase the space on the inside of an object, right? So I'm just going to head back to my code here for a sec. There's my content ID selector, and I don't have a padding value here yet, so I'm going to type in a padding value. Here's what I'm going to do. Sort of something similar that I showed you earlier. Padding, and then above and below, nothing. Left and right, 5 pixels, right? Just like that. So 0px, 5px, semicolon. Save it and refresh, and my layout breaks. Why does my layout break? Again, CSS box model, right? The padding that I just added on increased the width of my overall content container, not by 5 pixels, but by 10 pixels, because it's 5 on the left and 5 on the right. Does that make sense? So what I need to do now, this is such a pain in the neck, is I need to go back into my code, back into that content ID selector, find my width, and subtract 10 from it, right? Or whatever value I had set for my padding. So I'm going to change this now to 791 and refresh my layout, and it's all fixed now. So, you know, that's maybe one of the tougher things. I wrestle with it myself, is the box model. I look at this and I go, all right, let's throw in some padding. I throw in some padding and the whole thing gets blown to heck, right? And I go, what? Oh, yeah, the box model. So then I have to go and adjust my widths, right? Anyway, so keep that in mind. The other thing that I wanted to throw at you real quick here as well, in terms of the height, this is something that I showed you in the previous chapter. I'm just going to throw my dummy text into a paragraph container and then take that overall container and paste them out a few times, something like this. And then I'll refresh. And of course, again, things break, right? Because I forced a height on this content container. So the content container itself doesn't change in terms of size, but we're not going to lose the actual material that sits inside that content div, so it spills outside over top of the footer. I would not have that effect if my content container didn't have a height. So you can toast your height. Again, that could be a temporary value that you use at this point, or it might be something that you decide to keep in there. It's entirely up to you. But now what we have again is our dynamic footer. So the footer is going to move up and down depending on the amount of content that now resides inside the main content container inside our layout. Okay, something like that. So now it's going to move up and down, that footer there. Once again, as a gentle reminder, you may want to take your content ID selector and you may decide to set a minimum height. Say a minimum height of, 400 pixels, something like that. So if I refresh here, nothing changes. But then if I come along and get rid of a lot of this content, I showed you this earlier, didn't I? This is kind of old news. This is a bit of a refresher for you anyway. If I get rid of all the content inside the container, the minimum height that I'm going to have here is now 400 pixels, which I specified here, right? I hope that's cool for you. I hope it makes sense. Now, earlier in the previous chapter, I said that Internet Explorer does not support the minimum height property, which stinks to high heaven. I did just a very, nominal amount of research, and I found a website here that I haven't had a chance to really go through this and really apply some of the things that they're suggesting here on this page. But there seems to be a go-around for Internet Explorer, and it's one of these things, you run into these things where I know I've done this in the past, way back when I was setting up 10tonbooks.com or, building some other sites that use max height and things like this, or min height in our example, and I've since forgotten, so I'd have to read up on this to remember. But anyway, here's the URL, Sven, dtofte.com/code/max_width_in_IE. So in addition to minimum height, we have max height. So there's min height and max height, max width, min width as well. So you can mess around with those. You can check them out. And Explorer, of course, chokes on all of them. So I think we do have some solutions on this page, so you can check that out. But in any regard, there we go. There's how to build a fixed width layout. I hope you dug it.